demonstrator in Basking Ridge, New Jersey, and I go live every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time to share with you some of the things that I'm working on. So right now I am very, very busy with my Stamp Stack classes that are coming up starting tomorrow. Friday and Saturday, and then also getting ready for my Cards and Company Zoom class, which is at the end of the month, but registration ends on Saturday so that I can get everything together and get it in the mail, etc. So those are the two big things that I'm working on. So I thought I would share one of the cards from my class this week. And especially for the people who will be attending, it's kind of a tutorial for them to look at prior to coming, but also to share with everyone who can't be here in person. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to hop over to my desktop, and there we go. It's focused in. All right, so we are going to be using today the Sunset Coast, right here, Sunset Coast bundle, and as you can see, it has lots of great sentiments, and really we've used this card for lots of beachy kind of cards, and it coordinates with our gorgeous paper that has a name similar to Sunset Coast. Shame on me for not remembering the name. I didn't write it down this time, but these are the dies that are associated with it. So if you look back on my Facebook page or YouTube channel, you will see cards made with both of these, which just come out absolutely gorgeous. However, we've also used a lot of these dies, but one of the dies we haven't used yet is this one. And I actually took the class, the Sunset Coast class that Stampin' Up! Offers. We've been offering lots of classes through the Stampin' Up! Website. You join a Facebook page, and then there you can watch the classes live, but you can also go and view each of the project videos separately. So we love that we can do those classes. Hey, Susan, thanks for joining. So I took that class, and the card that we're making is actually one of the alternatives that they showed in the class, but it had some great techniques that we haven't used in a long time. So I said, you know what, let's go ahead and make that card. So that's what we're going to do. And I think I left my sample upstairs, so that's okay. We're gonna make it, and you'll see how it comes out. So we're going to start with our card base, and this is just a thick white card base, standard size. And I'm just going to fold it in half and give it a good score with my bone folder. Oops, forgot to put my glasses on. Let's get those on right away. All right. And what we're going to do is we put our fold there just so that we know where we're at, but we're going to open up the card. And what I thought was clever on this card, really not rocket science, but they stamped on both the front and the back to make the background instead of using designer series paper. So what we're going to do is we're going to use these colors, Misty Moonlight and Old Olive, and there is one stamp that is a polka dot. Not really a polka dot, it's really the sun that when we stamp with some of the other dies, this becomes the sun. But we're going to use it as a polka dot today. And we're going to start with Misty Moonlight. Now, I was using cloud cover originally, and I found that it was kind of when stamped off, it looked just the same as the Misty Moonlight. So what we're going to do is just use Misty Moonlight, and we are going to stamp off each time and then stamp onto our paper and then stamp again. So we're making these polka dots, and we're going to try to be random about it. We're not going to stress. And if you're coming to class, you'll notice that we are going to have lots of dots all over our scrap paper that's underneath. And don't forget to go over your fold. Now, obviously, I'm not doing a very good job here, but part of it is camera issues. Let's see, we get the bottom of that. But we're going to be covering up a lot of this anyway. And you can see that we get some nice coloration. So we're stamping off each one and then stamping it and stamping it again. So double stamp off on this. And we can do as many or as few as we'd like. Then what we're going to do is we're going to clean it off, and we'll have ways to clean it over, at the desks, but I don't usually do that when I do classes because we go through a lot of wipes or, the various cleaning methods. But today, this time, we are going to. Then we're going to move on to Old Olive, and we're going to make some more polka dots. And we're just going to do the same thing, ink it up, stamp it off, and then stamp it on. And you can really see the difference with the green, that when the difference in the coloration. Oh boy, I really got to stamp evenly here. This is total user error. It's not really the stamp. Stamp is just fine. Let me turn it. I think I'm getting my, there we go. And if you get an edge like I did there, don't worry about it. Nobody's going to know the difference. And make sure you get some on the line there. And then you can, even though we're gradiating it, kind of doing the blue into the green, just getting a few of them up there is great too. And I do suggest opening and closing your ink pads in between, just so that you don't go to the wrong color, because you want to work with the color that's on your stamp. So I'm going back to Misty Moonlight, and I'm going to add some more polka dots here at the bottom. And when they made this card, they used a completely different color palette, which was very pretty, but I wanted to do something a little different and something that could be a little bit more masculine. So here we have the card front and back, and you can decide which one looks better to be the front or the back. It doesn't matter. And that's our background. But we're going to continue on with background because we're going to put that aside, and our polka dot we're going to put aside, and we're going to take out a piece of this is a white willow cardstock. It's 3 3/8 by 4 inches, and we're going to use our blending brushes. And so here I have one that's basically dedicated to blues and one that's dedicated to greens. And what we're going to do is kind of do that same gradation. But we're going to be working with this on a diagonal, because what they showed in the class was that this, it looks like rays of sunshine, right? It could be lots of different things. But what we want to do is put it on this angle so that it's going across the card, and it just implies movement, right? And so this is a die, and these will be die cut just for ease of the class, because we're doing a lot of other things on this card. But this is the die cut, and it can be used in lots of different ways, but that's how we're using it for this class. And we're going to start with, I'm going to start with the green. So I'm going to use Old Olive in the center, and I'm going to take my blending brush, and I'm going to tap, tap, tap. Now what they showed is that it doesn't matter for this card, because you want it to be nice and dark. Okay, so normally I tap off, and then I come to the card and I put it on. But this one, we can just go ahead, and we want to get some nice color, because we're going to be doing something that's going to cover it up and soften it. Okay, so you might be able to guess. Now, I'm sorry, I'm shaking the whole table when I do this, because that's the way I work. So we're going to go back to the Misty Moonlight, and we're going to use it again. Now remember, like I said, you could use 3 different colors. I was going to use Cloud Cover, but it really came out looking very similar to a washed out, if you will, Misty Moonlight. So we want to get some more color, and then we're going to do it in the top corner too. So we're using our blending brushes, and again, we don't always use that in class, but they're really fun to work with. Now you notice, if you haven't seen me work with them before, a lot of people, these are just like the makeup brushes, right? And you tap, 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 and you can work with it. But what I find, just from a control perspective, is rather than holding the handle, I like to hold onto the head, okay? And then that helps me control the amount of pressure that I put on, because when you're working from the handle, you're kind of at the whim of, this little neck here, and I could actually see it breaking if you weren't careful enough. But you get the idea. So we're going to use our blending brushes, And then we're going to go ahead and assemble our card. So we're going to take this and we're going to center this on our card. I wish I had a polka dot there, so I'm just going to turn this over. Oh, look at that. Now I have polka dots in all the places. You could always go back and add some, but I'm just going to use some regular seal, Stampin' Seal, and add that to my card front. And it's just going to go in the center. That's pretty harsh and not that exciting, but watch what happens. We are going to take a same size piece of vellum and we're going to put it over the top, and look how that softens everything, right? So before we do that though, let's go ahead, because when you work with vellum, it is translucent, right? So you want to make sure that your adhesive that you use doesn't show through. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and adhere our things to the front of the vellum. So I'm actually just going to, you could use wet adhesive, especially to get these upper edges. What I suggest, if you're careful, as long as you're careful, you could just use regular adhesive there too, but it is very delicate. So let's go ahead and just add a couple of dots of adhesive here, just to kind of keep it down. And if you find that you've got like a daub of it and you don't want it to squish through, you can just use the, the tip of your applicator to spread it out and get it nice and thin. So that is how you can do that. Now, as I mentioned before, we're going to go on that diagonal, which is going to take us across the card, and we're going to hold this down. And if you give it about 10 or 15 seconds, you'll find that the wet adhesive will eventually dry and adhere. One of the things to note is that vellum isn't as absorbent, right? It has almost like a coating on it. It probably does have a coating, actually. And that coating prevents it from being, water, absorbing the water, which is what glue is based with, right? Glue is based with water. So, okay, so we've got that on there. Another reason why the other adhesive might be better for you if you're working with that. So next we're going to work with a strip. Now this strip is just 3/8 of an inch wide, and I'll have a bunch of them there. It might take a couple of tries, but I love that this has a happy anniversary message. For a while there, we didn't really have a lot of happy anniversary messages. So I'm going to go ahead and take that Misty Moonlight, and I am going to stamp right onto that, right in the center. Actually, it kind of looks like I didn't quite ink it up as well as I should have. And I'm doing it right in the center. And what we're going to do is just trim the end. And as I mentioned, this is basically what they did in the class that they shared. And so we're gonna just trim it on the same angle at both sides. Try to get the same amount of white space, roughly, or not. And then we're going to add this to just the center, or maybe just the low center. And what I like to do with this, this is again 3/8 of an inch, so you could either use mini dimensionals, which I'll probably have out, or you can just use regular size dimensionals. Does I have any minis here? I think I do. Oh yes, I do have mini dimensionals right here. So you can put these on, and when you put it onto the card, I'm going to use 3 because these are tiny. I'm going to peel that off, and then that's going to go right onto the lower part of our sunbeams. Okay, so now that we have that, you can see when we turn it over, we can see where the images are that we want to put our adhesive behind, so that way it won't be seen through. So I'm going to make sure I put a bunch here, because that's going to really make sure that we fasten it. And then I'm just going to add maybe in some of the larger areas. And again, to keep it thin, I'm giving it a little squeeze, and then I'm mushing it around a little bit with the tip. We had a session for demonstrators this weekend called Creativity Now, and it was a lot of fun. And this was a tip that they mentioned a couple of times, and I was like, I do that, but I've never really actually talked about it, never really thought about it. And see, we can go all the way back here, right? We've got this label, so that's going to really help secure things. So we've got two great spots with that on it, okay? So when we add this to our card front, we've got that going on. Okay, so am I not straight there? Maybe I didn't do my happy anniversary as straight as I wanted to. I could always move that a little bit, but again, we're going to hold it down and get that on there. And then I think the best part of this card is that we're going to use our Moody palette glossy dots. That's what these are called. And so there are several colors, and I only use 3 per card, just to keep things easy. But this time we're going to go ahead and use 5. You can see I've used these for classes and included them in class packets where I cut them apart. And I'm just going to peel some up, and I'm going to put a green one down here. I wish I had my sample. I'm going to use a couple of these. Now these are flat, and they are a little bit harder to grab. And so I'm going to take big ones and small ones, but I'm going to use both the what is this? This is the cloud cover ones, and still try to get some action here. And maybe we'll put one more green one down here somewhere. Here, we'll go here. So there we go. So this card has a couple of great techniques on it, and again, it is one of the card alternates from the Sunset Coast card class, and hopefully you learned a couple of things. This is really bothering me because it looks a little crooked. I'm just going to kind of pull that up a little bit. That looks a little bit better. And you can see that's just something a little fun. And you've got your back of your card stamped as well. So if anybody has any questions about any of this, feel free to let me know. All the dimensions and all the papers, all the different supplies that are used are in the description of this video, whether you're watching it on Facebook or YouTube. And I hope to see you next week when we share some more projects. So thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you the next time. Bye-bye.